This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for Gyo by Junji Ito.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69.
Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Ryan is at Darth Damio on the Bluebird app. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads.
Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for links to our Facebook group and Discord server. Enjoy our horror gaming content on YouTube.
Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com.
Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. Finally, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Stay scary.
Welcome to episode 37 of The Horror of Babylon, where we will be discussing Gyo by Junji Ito. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Yeah!
And Hef's here too.
How y'all doing? Good to be here.
Gyo! Gyo! All right, before we get into it, the Mothman Festival is fast approaching. We are going to be there at Point Pleasant, West Virginia on Saturday, September 17th. If any listeners are going to be at the event, please hit us up on our socials and let us know. We would love to meet anybody who's in the area. And before we get into Gyo, we also want to talk a little bit about some of our gaming updates. Hef here recently wrapped up his 9-episode playthrough of Amnesia: The Dark Descent. So Hef, if you just want to say a word or two on Amnesia, and then also tell us what you're playing next.
Amnesia was really just actually a great experience. It was my first real Let's Play I did for not just the channel, but really just in general. And I don't think I could have picked a better thing to start with. The game really had a lot of the elements that I think were just really, in line with what we were, trying to talk about as far as the horror genre itself. It has a lot of good references to things like H.P. Lovecraft and various other, legends throughout horror. And the pacing was just really good. It kept you on edge the whole time. The music was not overwhelming, and it just really, it just felt right by the time I was done. It felt like this was exactly where we needed to start.
You're also very entertaining to listen to.
Yeah,
especially when you get scared.
You did a great job. And so you just released your first episode of the next one, and you're now playing...
I'm playing Pony Island. Lesser known game in the Steam library, but it's one that's it's kind of like Doki Doki Literature Club. In
Probably
the sense
why I like it so much.
It's much in line with that. It's a game that intentionally throws you a premise and then proceeds to fuck with you about it. It's really short. It's only going to be 2 episodes. I was able to knock it out pretty quickly. But it is very much a game that's kind of in the same line as just kind of a mental
fuck.
Yeah, it's more of a mind fuck than anything else. And it's also one of those things I definitely recommend if you have Steam. Throw it in your wish list. It usually goes on sale 3 or 4 times a year, and it's worth playing. It's worth experiencing yourself. It's very fun.
And then dropping 9/14 every Wednesday, you get a new Let's Play from Hef. Will be your first episode of Mad Father, which I being the person with the power as I am, I have already gotten to watch the first 2 episodes of Mad. I gotta say, of the 3, Mad Father is my favorite so far.
Yeah.
With Amnesia, I did feel the need to kind of not be kind of over the top with it, because I kind of wanted to keep the atmosphere of the dreariness and the scares. Whereas Mad Father, I had more fun with it. It was more just it's a cute little horror game, and I also in this one I also got to use voices.
I love all the RPG Maker horror games.
Yeah, the use of voices was very fun.
Mad Father, Ib.
Yeah, Mad Father's a good one as well. They did updates to it. I don't know if you've played it since they did the major updates.
When was the last major update? I think I played it.
It looks like a completely different game.
I'll have to look.
It used to be like that old RPG Maker horror kind of thing.
Yeah, because I played
little pixel people.
Yeah, because I played it when it first came out.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't even look close to the same.
I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, it's good.
Or
it's very fun.
you can just watch Hef's Let's Play on 914.
Indeed.
I'll do both. I'll listen to his Let's Play while I play it.
Just remember, the Bro Crow is your friend.
Yeah, he is. He lets you save your game. So I have been playing The Devil Haunts Me, and I'm dropping new episodes of that every Tuesday. I don't know exactly how many episodes I'm going to take to play that game, but it is a ton of fun. So if you are interested in survival horror, definitely go to our YouTube and check that out. When I finish it, whenever that may be, I will start up The Cult of the Lamb, which I am just so absurdly excited to play.
Apparently, it's really good.
Yeah, it has great ratings on that thing where people buy games. Steam. And, like all my favorite YouTubers, like all my favorite Stardew Valley YouTubers are playing The Cult of the Lamb now, so I'm just, oh my god,
I can't wait to see what Ryan's religion looks like.
Well, grab that Han Solo figure that you were just.
There's a real big buff Han Solo.
Yeah, that's what it is.
This is his totem.
So, Kenner Han Solo, not the original Kenner Han Solo, but the '90s one. That's my religion. Yeah, I've had that thing since elementary school. All right, so let's go ahead and give the readers of the listeners, oh my god, a little bit of our background with Gyo and with Junji Ito in general. I'll just kick us off here real quick. So I kind of randomly stumbled on Gyo at, I don't know if it was Books A Million or Borders at the time. I'm sure it was Borders. No, I don't know if it was Walden's or Borders at the time. It was one of the two.
I forgot about Walden Books.
Yeah, it may have been Walden Books at this point. But I stumbled upon Gyo, picked it up, read it, bought the second volume, read it, thought, oh, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. Put it on my shelf. Probably loaned it to a couple people, but didn't think much about it. I read it again a couple years ago when I was stuck in a call center and really, really enjoyed it. And then I just picked it up again for the third time to reread it for this podcast. Now, as many times as I've read Gyo, I actually don't have a lot of experience with Junji Ito himself, because I've only really read Gyo plus a couple of the short stories that are included in Gyo, The Enigma of Amagara Fault and The Sad Tale of the Principal Post. I haven't read a lot of his iconic stuff like Uzumaki and Tomoe. I've been kind of saving myself for marriage with those, waiting for a good opportunity to read those, which will be the podcast, obviously.
And Tomoe also has some movie adaptations. So, my experience with Gyo. When I was looking for that manga School Mermaid and you gave me Mermaid Saga, you also gave me Gyo. You're like, here's more fish.
Good job, Ryan.
Yeah, so
looking ahead.
That's it. I was one of the people we lent it to, and I've never looked back. I have a massive Junji Ito collection now because of it.
So that was your first Ito?
That was my first Ito.
That was your first Ito of the cake, chips?
Yeah, that was my Ito period.
Fish and chips. That's very nice.
Fish and chips.
Eloquently spoken.
I had fish and chips like 2 weeks ago.
I also, not 2 weeks ago, but I had it fairly recently. My experience is basically pretty much anytime we are going to discuss a manga or an anime, it's going to be either Ryan or I telling the audience that he lent it to me. And that's how I read this and or watched this. But yeah, Gyo was one of the, I don't know, that was maybe like halfway into our really stint dive into manga. Like we'd started off with like your usual stuff, like anything was on Adult Swim or Toonami was kind of where we started, and again we started getting into more obscure things at the time, I guess. And
obscure for 2003, 2004.
You wanted to tip your fedoras.
Yeah, and Gyo,
no, that was you.
Gyo was kind of in that stride of us trying all the different stuff and just trying to see what we liked.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
So jumping into background, we're going to give you a little bit on Junji Ito. He is one of Japan's most well-renowned horror mangaka. It's probably between him and Kazuo Umezu for the title. He was born in 1963 in the Gifu Prefecture, and there's a cute little story when he was about 4 or 5 years old, one of his sisters giving him the manga Mummy Teacher by Kazuo Umezu, and it kind of inspired him to become a horror manga artist, and he actually started drawing at the age of 4. Now, some of his influences were previously stated Umezu, but also H.P. Lovecraft, he's a big fan, and in recent years, he's really gotten into the films of Guillermo del Toro.
I can definitely see that, especially with some of the twisted stuff he makes.
Have you guys seen the videos where Junji Ito reacts to scary videos?
No.
You should watch it. It's just some of the best shit on YouTube. That was really scary.
Isn't there one where it's just like a picture of a cat jumping out of a box or something, and he's just like, "That's frightened me."
It's a little anime cat, and it bites a girl's hand, and he goes, "Oh, that was scary."
One of my all-time favorite memes is the ones that compare him with Miyazaki.
Because he seems like such a happy dude.
Yeah.
You got Miyazaki, who's like with 3 cigarettes in his fist and being like, "The world is over.
Anime was a mistake."
My favorite one is the interviewer says, "Do you like the Beatles?" And Miyazaki says, "I fucking hate the Beatles." And Junji Ito goes, "I love the Beatles." And then it has a picture of Uzumaki and a picture of Howl's Moving Castle, and it's like, your world if you hate the Beatles, your world if you love the Beatles.
We should watch some of his reactions in between these recordings.
Okay, sure. Some of his most famous works include Tomoe, Uzumaki, Gyo, and lots of horror anthologies.
His anthologies are really good. I can't recommend them enough.
In some honors, Uzumaki was nominated for the Eisner Award in 2003 and 2009. The Eisner Award, the most important comic award that's out there in the world. In 2019, he won the Eisner Award for his manga adaptation of Frankenstein. In 2021, Ito received 2 more Eisner Awards for Ramina and Venus in the Blind Spot.
Which is weird because Ramina is probably one of his worst works.
I haven't read it.
In my opinion, anyway. It's okay, but when you're comparing it to like Uzumaki, yeah.
Well, Uzumaki wasn't on the ticket that year.
Yeah. I want to see what he was up against. I'll have to look that up later.
And then some background on Gyo. The full title is actually Gyo Ugomeku Bukimi, which translates to Gyo, the death stench creeps. Viz was just like, let's just call it Gyo. It's a seinen manga, so if you're not familiar with manga, they have like 4 or 5 classifications that are based on age and gender. Shonen manga are for younger males. The shoujo manga are for younger females. Seinen is for older males. Josei is for older females, and Kohei is for young kids. Obviously, that doesn't mean anything. I have read my fair share of shoujo manga, so that's just it's really more of an industry thing.
I've read the entirety of the Sailor Moon manga, and I have no regrets.
Gyo was published in Big Comic Spirits from November of 2001 to April of 2002. Some other great titles that were also published in Big Comic Spirits: 20th Century Boys, Uzumaki, Maison Ikoku, Crying Freeman. The first trade paperback was published by Shogakukan in Japan in 2 volumes in 2002, and it was released in 2003 in the United States by Viz Media. And volume 2 included 2 one-shots, previously mentioned The Sad Tale of the Principal Post and The Enigma of Amagara Fault, which we will discuss those at a later date. Currently, you can buy Gyo as a 1-volume hardback collection. And there is...
I have that one. It's very nice. Most of his works, I think, have been given that treatment.
Yeah, I have the Uzumaki one. And Gyo and Tomie, those versions are in my Amazon wish list.
They're nice. They're nice trade backs.
Mm-hmm. And there is one adaptation, a 2012 OVA from UFO Table. They also these are the people who behind Demon Slayer and Fate Stay Night. We will be reviewing that film next week on the podcast.
Ryan's a big fan.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of parts of it. Other parts of it, not so much. So let's jump into structure and themes. Not a lot to go on. Not a lot to discuss in terms just of the structure.
A straightforward story.
Very straightforward, chronological. I think there's more to talk about in terms of themes. And one of the most unique things about this story, it's one of the only horror comics or novels I've ever read that uses the sense of smell in such a strong and prolific way. Daniel, can you speak to that?
Fart gas is scary.
Stunning commentary as always.
I was expecting more of an X-rated comment, so that's actually pretty good for me. Would you like another beer? I can get you another beer.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I think this is literally the only...
Fart box scary. Ooh.
I do think that this is probably the only horror story that tried to use the sense of smell and, like...
Succeeded? Or did it succeed in your eyes?
I think it succeeds. I feel like it's aware that the fact that the zombies is probably the wrong word, but the infected people are farting and burping out all this gas. I think it's aware of some of that inherent silliness of that.
Yeah.
But it still manages to make the concept of being attached to these machines super terrifying using that. Usually whenever, like, we read a horror novel and it talks about smells, like, they might emphasize the smell, but it's not, like, one of the big parts that's supposed to get you scared.
And I would say that the smell itself is probably, like, the primary piece of horror in this story,
Yeah.
not the fish.
Yeah. And that's what it focuses on, which you might not know if you just... Because this is known as the fish with legs horror manga. That's how everyone knows it. And really, it's the Fart Gas is Super Scary by Junji Ito.
So I was watching the movie last night,
Yeah.
and Beck came in, and I flipped it off. And she said, "Oh, what are you watching, Gyo?" And she's like, "You say that like I'm supposed to know what it is. Maybe I want to watch it. Maybe tell me a little bit of what it's about." It's about fish with legs and farts that kill people. Never mind, you were right.
You should have told her you were watching FDR.
No, you should. You
She
should
would have just left.
You should have made her watch it with you, and then had her guest star.
I cannot make her watch anything.
The sense of smell being like the fear factor here, I think it works because of the art that he uses. Like, the art in itself in the book is kind of meant to be disgusting. Like,
it is.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he's imposing a smell to go with it really kind of produces a more visceral effect.
And it's gross out humor, or not humor, horror.
Right.
You guys have seen, like, pictures of dead bodies that have been, like, bloated up, right?
Yeah.
He does a very good job of drawing that kind of, like, gas buildup.
Well, and it's a sensory thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's meant to trigger multiple things at once. So, like, if you're looking at something gross and then you smell something gross on top of it,
Yeah.
I imagine the cerebral effect is just not even describable.
And I've smelled a dead body, and they're not pleasant.
Right. I mean, it stifles your senses to the point of probably irrational fear.
And Junji Ito's very good at conveying what he wants through his drawings.
Yes.
He has that, like, because it is a manga, it's only a visual medium, but he's very good at conveying the sound he wants you to hear, or in this case, the smell, with just a drawing, and that's pretty, I think it's impressive, so...
And I also wanted to talk about Gyo as an apocalyptic story, because this is a tale of an apocalypse.
It's a mix between The Stand and Walking Dead.
But it's very... Typically with apocalypse horror, it's zombies or a virus or like a world-shattering storm. Those are some very common ones. But this is about a gas that uses a walking machine to get fish and go on land, and
Yeah. And that may or may not be spirited by the ghosts of the dead.
So what are some similarities between more mainstream apocalypse stories like The Stand or The Walking Dead, and what are some contrasts?
One of the big similarities is like, you have that, like, initial reveal, right? Walking Dead, Rick finds his first zombie. It's just one zombie hanging out. Mm-hmm. And then an episode later, he turns a corner and there's just the giant horde. Same thing here.
Actually, Daniel, I believe you would know that that's at the end of the first episode.
Is it at the end of the first episode?
Because he goes and he hides underneath the tank, and the horse gets ripped to pieces.
Why do you sound like you're from Quahog?
What would Cleveland Brown say to Adolf Hitler?
What would Cleveland Brown say to Adolf?
There's no way this is PC.
That's Nazi.
I'm twirling my temples now for a different reason.
I want Seth MacFarlane to do a adaptation of Gyo.
No, you just focus on Orville season 4, Seth.
Do the Cleveland show. You use Cleveland Brown as
Cleveland could guest star in Ted 3. That'll be fine. No, I don't sound like Peter Griffin. Okay, so
stories.
what are some aside from the fish? Obviously, what are some difference between Gyo and some other apocalypse stories?
Like the 15 different explanations that Junji Ito gives as possible hypotheses for the origin of what's going on.
Yeah,
usually get 1, maybe 2, and this one had I think I lost count at 4.
Quick preview of next week's episodes. One of my few praises of the anime adaptation is they simplify that, and
yeah,
I don't want to say they dumb it down, but they make it less over-explained.
This is something Junji Ito does a lot, and it's probably because he's such a big fan of cosmic horror, where you don't want to get a definitive explanation. So instead, he just gives you 4 or 5 possibilities.
Yeah.
Of this is probably what's going on.
It's also awkward that the person who's semi-responsible for the whole thing just happens to be the grandfather of the person who discovered the first fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's not that kind of story. To me, it's it's visual, it's shock horror, it's gross out horror. I don't feel right picking it apart too much, because to me it's really just a fun.
No, I mean you could pick any of Junji Ito's works apart if you want to be super nitpicky about things, but a lot of what works for him is stuff like the art and how he gets you to turn the page. He can do jump scares in a fucking manga just because he sets up a reveal, gets you to turn the page, and then there's a super spooky image.
It's me. Yeah. I've had a few of those got me. I feel like there's less similarities to a lot of apocalyptic works, in the sense that I feel like most apocalypse stories start out with the concept that there's an apocalypse happening. Mm-hmm. You already kind of know that going in. This story does a really good job of leading to it, mm-hmm. rather than making it the primary focus of the story. Because by the end of the book, you realize it's an apocalypse that's happened. Because it seems local to Japan at that point. And then you slowly realize it's so much bigger than that. And I feel like most modern apocalyptic stories these days, the apocalypse is the whole point of, that going in, that's the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas this is just more of a slow burn until you realize, this is way bigger than that. And it's you as the reader also learning that it's more of an apocalyptic tale. So I think it does a lot better in terms of a build up to that, mm-hmm. rather than trying to sell it as the face value itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another big difference is a lot of the really popular, or at least modern, apocalypse stories are extremely character driven. Walking Dead and The Stand are great examples. This really is not. It's not even. It's weird because it's not character driven, and it's not even really plot driven. It's really just, to me, a visual experience.
It's sort of scare driven. It's set piece driven.
Yeah.
He had this idea of things that would look creepy and gross, mm-hmm. and he sold it to its greatest effect.
Let's start with Okinawa, and then we'll do the streets of Tokyo, and then we'll go to a fucking circus.
And he put the characters in there just to get you to the set pieces.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
All right, so jumping into characters, we only have 4 to go through, but I'm sure we'll spend 30 minutes on each because they're all super deep. We're going to start with our protagonist, Tadashi. Tadashi! I'll kick off.
My college professor.
I remember the first couple times I read this, just thinking he was a total badass, and that I totally loved him, and then I kind of hated his guts on this read. For me, like, he and Cowrie both were just not likable in even the slightest.
Not at all.
But it doesn't really matter. Like, the story's still enjoyable even with characters that you don't like or can't sympathize with.
What do you mean you want me to brush my teeth? You get the fuck out of this house.
It wasn't the whole story. It was the first 2 to 3 chapters where he's just like going off on her, and I'm like, dude, chill out. Like, don't start screaming at her.
And like, was her request kind of sort of super stupid? I want you to brush your teeth literally every time before we kiss.
I mean, if I could smell the flesh of dead bodies rotting around me, I would want people to brush their teeth before we kiss too. I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable. Yeah, was Cowrie in hysterics for like almost the entire story? Sure, but like, he didn't have to be an asshole about it.
He didn't have to explode over it.
Yeah, too volatile. Like, he was like really pushing it.
He has a little bit of redeeming factors with, regardless of how big of an ass he is, he never really gives up on Cowrie.
He keeps going back for her.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know why they didn't seem to like each other at all.
Most abusers do.
I've spent all these years grooming this girl. I'm not going to give up on her now.
I worked hard for this. I think he's like he's almost Lovecraftian in a sense to me. Like when we were reading the Call of Cthulhu, where like his uncle, the professor, the main character. I can't.
Yeah,
Francis.
Yeah,
Francis. He felt a lot kind of like a Francis character, where like he's more of a chess piece to move between the different scenes.
Yeah,
like he's not a super deep.
He's a storytelling device.
Right. That's kind of how I felt about him.
Yeah.
Junji Ito gets compared to H.P. Lovecraft all the time. And this is one of those similarities where I'd go, oh yeah, this is... Because he uses characters as puzzle pieces.
Yeah.
He very rarely gives them any sort of depth. Which, that can be a criticism. I like it in spite of that.
I think it works for the story.
Yeah.
Would it technically be better if I cared about Tadashi and Cowrie? Maybe. Yeah, but I wouldn't change it. I think it's great as it is.
See, the fact that it's a maybe, like instead of a yes, absolutely, makes it...
Because it might change a lot of what else is going on in Gyo. If you spend a lot more time like developing them as characters as opposed to what he wants to do, which is show these super gross fun things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So jumping over to Cowrie, we've already mentioned, I think she's even less of a character than Tadashi. She's really just like a carrot at the end of the stick.
I can smell it!
That he has to chase throughout the whole thing. And the only word that you can really use to describe her, and this isn't a criticism so much as it is an explanation, is just she's hysterical the entire time.
Yeah.
Which I honestly, I probably would be too. But... she's not a three-dimensional character. I
would probably be in hysterics the first time I saw a fish with legs in my house.
Yeah.
Well, she's getting also like it starts for her before all that. Right. Like, cause she has like the smell all the time. Like,
yeah, she has like Wolverine's super smell.
Yeah, she keeps like her senses are being bombarded to the point where her hysterics are developing before you even realize she's being hysterical.
This is the future for Tanjiro. a little weeb humor for everybody.
Is that a Demon Slayer joke?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because he has a super good sense of smell, and that's how he can tell where demons are, and he can even smell people's intent.
Oh, okay.
It's like one of the goofier things on the show.
I can smell intent.
And then there's another character that can like hear super good.
Dr. Koyanagi, Tadashi's uncle,
probably has the most character out of all of them.
Yeah, because he's the only one that has any kind of backstory and development. He doesn't have an arc, but he does have an explanation of his past and his motivations.
My great-grandfather invented a fart gas.
Could he be any less of a stereotypical mad scientist? No way. He has a metal arm with a hook on it.
He literally gets the claw arm and then kidnaps his nurse.
I really wanted a scene where he struggled to pick something up, and I never got that, and I'm kind of bitter about it.
It reminds me of John Lovitz's character from 8 Crazy Nights, the guy with the hook, and they're like, oh, how do you wipe your ass?
I do love that, like, when the fish legs grabbed onto his arm. He's just like, I guess I gotta remove that.
Gotta cut it off. It's even more like without a care in the anime. He's like, and obviously I had to remove my arm.
Obviously. I wasn't getting it back.
What about his flying machine?
The flying machine was peak level. I was not ready at all when he fucking flew out in what looked to be a man kite.
And then the circus freaks pop his balloon and his wings spread out, and now it's a glider.
that was a guy. Of all the things he told me to be ready for, that was not what it was. I was not ready for Birdman fish.
I do love that, like, all the fish legs from the sea want to kill his artificial creations. Like, there's some sort of will to them. It's fascinating.
It's like, we see a superior form of ourselves. We must destroy it.
I like how he was like a thing. It's just like how to like that. Like that character itself is more, I think, just Junji Ito being there, sitting there and being, how can I make this more ridiculous this way? Like that's like the apex point, is when he just fucking flies out of the fucking garage.
That's the apex for you?
It was.
Not the fucking tentacle porn?
No. Because all the other stuff, like, kind of fell in line with everything.
Okay.
Him fucking flying away, I was not at all anticipating anything like that, and I don't know why, but that gets me.
My apex is going to come up in scary shit.
Okay.
All right, so let's wrap up characters with Miss Yoshiyama, a.k.a. the doctor's assistant, a.k.a. the enabler. Like, he's doing all this crazy shit, and you just let him do it. Stop!
That pretty is touching my boyfriend, and I, as fish lady, must attack her.
I mean, she's cute. I'd get jealous, too.
People really underestimate just how pretty women are in Junji Ito comics.
Yeah, I mean, they're all very, very pretty.
Like, you don't see a lot of fan art of them, but every time, like, I'm reading Uzumaki or I'm reading this, I'm like, God, these are so fine.
Especially when they got that spiral weave.
Yeah. He almost always gives him, like, that little beauty mark right underneath the eye.
I also have noticed that.
Yeah.
Well,
he must be really into beauty marks. I don't know.
Part of it may be that these are not particularly well-written female characters, but you could read this and say, oh my gosh, he writes such weak women. This is terrible. And I would say, yes, he does, but the men are also weak.
Yeah.
None of the characters are three-dimensional.
His best written character is a murderous female ghost like thing.
I also do feel like, though, as far as, like, maybe to make up for it, and I don't think this is a conscious thing, maybe just something to do, but I feel like his female characters are more exquisitely drawn than most manga.
Yeah, they're fucking gorgeous. I get kind of obsessed with them.
So, I mean, I could kind of, like, see, like, a duality there between, like, yeah, maybe your character depth isn't real deep, but you show the affection for your characters in the art that you present.
Kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Jumping over to scary shit, first thing on the docket is the smell, which we've mostly discussed the smell when talking about themes and using smell to convey horror. So we're going to go ahead and jump to the fish, and I want to use this to make a point. We're 35 minutes into this podcast, and this is the first time we're actually going to start talking about the fish
with the legs that everyone talks about
in the fish leg manga, because they're not that important. The story is not about them. They're really just...
It's about the fart gas. You don't know that at first, but that's what it ends up being about.
So what are your guys' thoughts on the fish?
I think they are the best set pieces in the manga. Like, the things that you really remember are the things that they advertise. It's almost always either from the fish or from the tubes sticking into people. Those are the two things you see.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers the shark with legs, because that's terrifying. Junji Ito was writing those silly sci-fi original, like, Sharktopus versus Crocoduck or whatever sort of movies. Where
Please
it's just
tell
like
me Crocoduck is a thing.
Maybe. I know Sharktopus is, and there's a Sharktopus
I'm Googling
versus
Crocoduck.
It's like the Sharknado sort of movies. He took this concept about, I'm going to make a shark scarier and silly, and he just ran with it, and it's great.
What's scarier for you guys, the fish or the people who get caught in the machines and the disease?
The idea that I could get infected scares me more, but only because I don't want a bunch of tubes shoved up my ass and in my mouth.
Crocoduck!
Yeah.
Crocoduck! It exists.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before.
It exists.
That's cute.
Kirk Cameron, does God exist? Debate on that tonight after discussion of Crocoduck.
Yeah, I remember that video.
Kirk Cameron there's no debate. Kirk Cameron believes in God wholeheartedly. I can tell you that for sure. I've watched Left Behind.
And Left Behind 2.
Have you watched Saving Christmas?
I did not finish Left Behind 2. No, I have not seen Saving Christmas.
We should do Saving Christmas as a bonus episode.
Okay. Sure. Why not? Okay, so...
What was the question?
Talk about the fish, the people. Talk about
the fish. Okay.
the people, the fish, the butts, and the anuses.
So, I remember one question where, like, what's scarier, the fish or the people? Like, I mean, from a... Like, if I was in the story, definitely the fish. But as a reader, I mean, the idea that it can do this to people is terrifying. Like, just, you just hunch over one day and then this big old mechanical thing with legs comes over and is just like, we're gonna ram you now, and basically just shove something in you.
It's a bear trap with legs.
Basically.
That shoves tubes in your booty.
Like,
and your mouth.
Like, and the idea that you're, like, some people, and I don't remember if this was established or not, but some people are more susceptible to it than others, and then there's other people that just don't get affected really by it.
It was almost like The Stand, where there were just some people who were just immune.
Yeah.
Right.
Tadashi and people from, was it Kyoto University?
Yeah, the scientists or whatever.
It's real lucky these scientists have survived.
And it seemed like Yoshiyama was also going to be immune, but we don't really know because she was killed. So when Yoshiyama was killed, the circus people like shot the airship and it dropped her. It really reminded me of the nanny in Jurassic World that gets picked up by the pterodactyl and like flown out over the water and dropped into the water and eaten by the big thing.
So
that's funny.
Yeah. The fish thing didn't really I don't think after a while the fish thing wouldn't bother me as much because they are still fish.
Yeah.
They're not eating you. Like, the only reason the shark's coming after you is because it's a fucking shark.
Yeah. I love the whale.
The whale was just like, holy shit. Like, while it was impressive, at the same time I'm sitting there being like, aside from the legs that might step on me, I have no reason.
Well, the legs break on the whale because it can't handle the weight out of the water.
Yeah, it never makes it past the beach.
Yeah, so I mean, like, the fish thing just kind of is like, I could see where the more exposed to it, the less fear. It'd be like walking with dinosaurs, like.
What about the squid?
The squid weirded me out, but again, at the same time, they're still animals. They act on instinct, so you're just kind of like the people. However, like that scene where Cowrie just fucking runs at Miss Yoshi, whatever, like that shit fucking would alarm me because I'm like, that's still a person in there.
Yeah,
that has intent.
So overall, I'd say for me, it's really more gross than scary. But the apex, the part that if I were in the story would have freaked me out the most, was the circus. With the fucking diseased, bloated clowns who are playing their instruments by just blowing gas throughout it.
They're blowing their fart gas in the pipes.
And then the guy who's not the ringmaster is not infected. He's just fucking gone insane. You can see the gas's true form when you expose it to fire. Let's call out the human fire breather. That was probably my favorite part in the whole book. Just the whole circus. And then you've got elephants and lions and monkeys and shit.
Everything's just now on the machines.
Yeah, it's like an old folks home. Everybody's on the machine.
Okay, so I have something for Kiss Me Fat Boy now.
Kiss me, fat boy.
Okay, so when Kiara gets infected and she's in the machine, do you think Tadashi would have still smashed?
No.
When she was in the bathroom throwing up, but she was still naked, would you think that Tadashi would smash?
Yes, I think he would.
Okay,
I think he was so into her that he would have still smashed.
I can prove it. He was not willing to brush his teeth to kiss her. no way he would smash her.
Well, no, because he didn't care about the smell. I don't care how big or smelly you are, baby. Bring your metal legs over here.
Oh my God, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Okay, it is time for the Kings and the Koontzes. Mr. Daniel, what was your king?
The shark coming out of the ocean. It's like the most iconic shot from the manga.
My king is the circus.
It was really hard for me to pick because there were so many. My king, like if I was going to like, my king is what freaked me out the most, and that was Tadashi being like falling into that pool and being like pretty much overtaken by the little like creepy crawly thingies that was like crawling all over.
The tiny fish legs.
Yeah,
tiny fish that look like cockroaches.
Yeah,
like,
that's super gross. That would suck.
That got me pretty good. Like that was a pretty big one for me.
And Daniel, your Koontz.
My Koontz is that there was like 15 different explanations for what was going on, when I think it would have been best if they didn't even try to explain it.
My Koontz, and this is with a grain of salt because, like I said, I wouldn't change it, but my Koontz is that I didn't like any of the characters, really.
My king is actually the same, or my Koontz is the same as Ryan's. I didn't feel like character-wise I really gave a fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could say it would be better if I liked them because then I would care more when bad things happen to them, but the book is still super enjoyable.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Another like thing I really liked is that, and this is going to sound terrible, but I liked that Junji Ito actually killed Kaori.
Yeah.
I thought that was way more of a heavy hit at the end of the book.
Junji Ito is not shy about killing his characters.
No, I
don't get attached.
I thought that was I don't know if it was a bold move, considering it's probably, not one of those stories where you're just like, I'm going to lose my entire audience based on this. But I thought it was...
Junji Ito will kill an entire family just if it makes a cool drawing.
Yeah, it did. Like, that irked me.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are moving on to ranking. Hef, your list so far is Mermaid Saga at number 1, Gotham by Gaslight at number 2, and Master of the Future at number 3. That is everything we've reviewed except for the comic adaptation of The Stand, which honestly you should read because it's basically the same as the book, except it's not 1,000 million pages long.
It's probably as good of an adaptation as you can do. I believe we even said that.
Yeah, we did. So where would you place Gyo?
It was kind of contentious for a minute, but I think it goes just below Mermaid Saga.
Okay, you're number 2, Gyo. And Daniel.
It's my number 1 so far.
Number 1. And so Daniel had it, Hef had it at number 2, Daniel has it at number 1, and I will put it at number 3. Below Mermaid Saga at number 1, Gotham by Gaslight number 2, and then that would make Gyo 3, Stand 4, and Master of the Future 5. So, all right, we had some variation on that one, which is good. I like it. All right, moving on to homework. If you could replace the fish with any other animal, what would it be? Both as a reader enjoying the work and as a character in the story. Daniel, you always do your homework.
Crocodiles. Crocodiles freak me the fuck out.
So that would be if you're reading it.
Yeah.
Would you also choose crocodiles if you were a character in the story?
No, those would be like monkeys. It'd be something super soft that I could like kick.
Okay.
Planet of the Apes, only with fart gas. Because they already smell bad.
So both as a story and both as like a reader?
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, what I would have actually liked, I think, as a reader is more things that would fly. I don't know, what I thought was a California condor. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yeah, they're big.
The wingspan of those things are terrifying. So
I watched The Rescuers.
I thought that would be cool. Like, honestly, like as far as like a more, what's scarier than something that can come out of the sea and walk around? Something that in addition can fly. Like, then you just have no shot. Another one I thought would be cool as a story, and it took I don't know, a bit of variation. I actually like the idea of primates being like kind of concocted with these level of things, because primates are just smart enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think like something that like gives extra physicality to something like an ape or something like that would make it possibly, you know, the next dominating force on the planet.
They have a grease monkey.
Yeah. I mean, I still have nightmares from watching Draco Malfoy get beaten to death by a gorilla. So, what about... So I was thinking, what if it was a microscopic animal?
Yeah.
Would that make it better? Or would that make it much, much worse?
Yes.
Because you wouldn't know about it. You'd have no defense against it.
It's a tick.
It's a tick. Oh my god, that'd be... I mean, they're basically ticks anyway.
You just give ticks more legs.
Okay, so my answer is 1, water bears, and 2, wood ticks.
Nothing can kill water bears.
Exactly. We're all doomed. We're doomed.
I've seen Octonauts. They're invincible.
Okay, and our question for the listeners this week is the same. Please let us know what animals you would like to see in place of the fish. And then for further reading, I just listed a bunch of horror manga. I like Orochi in the Drifting Classroom, both by Kazue Umezu, Goth by Kendi Oiwa, and Domu by Katsuhiro Otomo, which we will be covering on the show.
Is Drifting Classroom good? That keeps coming up in my recommendation.
It's like the best. It's probably like the best horror manga I've ever read.
It's also in my like Amazon wish list.
Yeah. So. The issue is it's so long.
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole thing. I've only read the first few because a certain friend of ours in high school, who will go unnamed, only bought the first few. And I was like, don't you know how this works? We all spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on manga so we can read each other's.
They have them in collections now, so I've been...
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 volumes.
You guys have some more recommendations for further reading?
Just literally anything written by Junji Ito, because you're probably going to get a similar vibe.
Including the Cat Diaries of Junji Ito?
Yes. Oh, Sharknado. Watch Sharknado.
I would recommend, in addition to Junji Ito's works, some older, more... I'm trying to think of how to... There's one I would recommend, but it's unfortunately it's not aged well like a lot of the works that he has, which is Osamu Tezuka's MW.
Oh, I love it.
It's kind of warped.
We are covering MW in season 2 of the Horror of Babylon.
It's warped. You have to go into it with an open mind and realize that it was written back in like the early 70s. Because there's a few concepts you're reading in it that you're just like,
pedophilia.
Do I? Yeah, it can be a lot, but it's got that kind of like mind warping, like kind of like shock value.
I have a recommendation. Cowgirl of Cthulhu. I will recommend it until more people watch it.
Well, let's just recommend it in every episode.
Yeah, every episode.
All right, and upcoming on the Horror of Babylon next week, we will be covering the anime adaptation of Gyo. The following week, September 18th, is our next novel episode, where we will be covering the Stephen Graham Jones hit, The Only Good Indians. Thank you guys for coming to record tonight.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary.
Stay scary.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. Follow Daniel at DStarSick on Twitter. Follow Ryan at Darth Damio on the Bluebird app. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. And finally, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, TuneIn and the iHeartRadio app. Stay scary.